Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome to the STiKS EU. Once again, it's me and my partner in crime, Tommy. As per usual, Tommy waving there now in the corner, and actually we have someone a little bit different on the show. It's actually the first time coming on the show. He was a stormtrooper, but he looked a bit different from the ordinary. Ordinary.
I'm gonna take that as an insult, and that's gonna start the show off great.
No.
This is gonna be so much fun.
Oh no. He was a stormtrooper, and now he's revealed himself as Bryce, the man underneath the mask. How you doing, my friend? Is he alright? Is Bryce alright?
Bryce, did you hear that question?
He's muted now. Oh no, technical issues. Don't worry, guys. Like, I'll just keep on talking. Bryce is probably just trolling.
Oh no.
We'll just keep on talking. Guys, this show's actually going to be about ESWC. You know, the French event was coming up this weekend. Frantically, we can hear goalie typing in the background, trying to sort everything out. So I'm just going to wing it, hope for the best. And yeah, hopefully this won't take too long because Bryce has apparently disappeared off the face of the earth. Great. But yeah, ESWC coming around the corner. A lot of speculation. 3 American teams are actually coming over to face off against 5 European teams. So it should be quite an interesting event. I think it's the first event in Europe. What's going to have Americans over as well. Hello?
Yeah, I'm back along.
You're back? Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Introduce yourself, because you kind of like just disappeared when.
Yeah. I bet you thought I was actually going. Hi, I'm Bryce, or Bricey, or Bricetacular. I'm a caster, host, presenter, general. I do things in esports.
Okay, that was a pretty sound explanation.
Yeah, I also work for Gfinity.
Yeah, that one as well. Just snuck in there, but yeah, we was talking about when you was there. We were just explaining about how ESWC is the first tournament of the year. Obviously, Gfinity.
Forced? Come on, Ray, you got to step this up, man. Like,
we've had such a horrible start because of you, so I'm just like winging it. I mean, like, your webcam's gone now. You just ruined the show.
My webcam should be back. It's back on.
It's not for me.
I can't see it either.
Let me turn it back off and on.
Oh, it's loading. There we are.
Here we go. You know, we started off on a very, very dark area. Very, very bad as well. So kind of just it's slowly crawling its way back up. Hopefully it gets better than this. But as I was saying, ESWC is the first event of the year on European soil where Americans are coming over. Obviously, you got Gfinity the weekend after, where there's going to be some American teams. We'll talk about that later on as well. There's going to be 3 American teams followed by 5 European teams battling it for at this ESWC event. Bryce, you've been there before at an ESWCs.
Yes.
What is ESWC like? Obviously, there's French fans. A lot of people say that they're quite passionate. What's that like actually experiencing in person?
It's good. Generally, the French community is easily one of the most kind of fanatical fan bases there is. Just crazy the amount of people that turn out to come and watch. Certainly the biggest crowds I've ever kind of cast to, although technically because it's kind of a French event, the English stream doesn't really go out to them, but it is amazing to see the cheers and stuff, and they're usually so loud you can hear it over whatever stream you're on. Okay,
so I mean, like, I've obviously seen videos of it. I'm sure Tommy's also seen videos of the crowd going crazy, especially whenever they see like Guitarga walking past and so on and so forth. Obviously, he's like just the man of French Call of Duty.
Yeah.
One thing I actually want to talk about is these American teams coming over after being so dominant at Champs, another event what you was at. You got sort of person about how bad European teams kind of matched up against America. Do you feel that's going to be the same this event? Do you feel as if it's going to be an all-American final?
Typically, European teams do better on European soil. No idea why that is. No idea why. A little bit of home advantage. And most European majors, when they have American teams in, it's usually a European team that'll make it to the final. Again, don't know why. It just seems to happen. So no, I'm actually going to say no. I don't think it'll be an all-European, all-American final. I don't know why. Logically it says it will. Like logically, I just think the Americans are above every European team. But I don't know. It doesn't happen that often. I don't know why.
Right, and obviously, going back to your point, I believe Gfinity 1, Gfinity 2, and Gfinity 3 all kind of had European versus NA finals. Obviously, you kind of know a little bit more about that. So that should be interesting. But probably the biggest story coming into the event is, on top of all the roster changes, the whole America Optic Gaming coming over here, Enable as a pickup for Karma. Do you feel as if that's going to hinder the team anymore? Obviously, it's such a good team on paper. Do you feel as if that might affect him having a last-minute pickup?
Will it affect him in the fact that it's Enable? No, the guy is amazing at COD. Otherwise, they wouldn't have picked him up, clearly. Will it affect them in terms of chemistry and lack of practice? You know what? It's always going to be a factor. Always going to be a factor. However, there have been Call of Duty teams that have done really well in the past with no practice. So pickup teams have done really well in the past. Those 3 players could probably play with almost just about anybody and make a team that's good enough to play with anybody. Hopefully, adding in Enable will make them above a C+. I'm sorry. I had to say it. But yeah, you know, it's one of those teams that you can't really doubt them at any point. Enable will fit in, and they will be phenomenal. Whether or not they're good enough to win the entire thing, I think Denial will have a few words to say about that.
That's quite interesting. What team do you think is going to do best from the EU side of things, though?
Well, that's where it kind of gets a little bit complicated because there's been a lot of rumours flying around about Epsilon Vitality. I've heard a few things from the players directly themselves over the last couple of days.
Can you enlighten us?
No, I cannot. One of the reasons I get told these things is because A, I'm very good friends with a lot of them, and B, I don't tell everybody, otherwise it doesn't become a secret. All I know is that it's if it comes out the way I was told, it will be a little bit mind-blowing of what actually is happening with the European teams. Because I was taken aback, even, you know, my kind of figuring out what was going on and where people were going. It didn't actually... I was completely wrong. When I first kind of thought, oh, this is what will happen, completely wrong.
So you were surprised by what you've been told?
Yeah, I was. And I still haven't got the full story. So I'm not entirely sure what is going to happen and why it's happened. I just know that
it's a bit worrying because we're on Wednesday and they're probably going to have to fly out either tomorrow or Friday. So, you know,
I imagine it's probably settled down now. I mean, I was told the final kind of thing last night. I imagine it's probably settled down now. They'll be ready to go. But it does beg one or two more questions again. It begs the questions of, are they going to be practiced enough? Are they going to have their strats down enough? Is it a kind of, oh, we've just had to pick up this guy because we don't have another choice, or, you know, contracts have forced us to go one way or the other, and that will be an issue. These are major events. They're not just, you know, some
50K
small. Yeah, this is not small events, you know, anywhere else in the world. It's big events. These are majors. You cannot walk into these events with anything less than your A game if you expect to walk away.
Interesting point, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think Vitality Storm as a team only picked up McGee about a week or so before. Yeah. Now, obviously, we've got all the changes again, so it's going to be interesting. So, I mean, I guess the big EU teams are at a bit of a disadvantage. What team are you going to say cause some surprises? Is there a team that you look at in the lineup that maybe can cause some surprises and is kind of the underdog going into it?
There are a few underdogs. There are a few underdogs. And mainly there are underdogs because people don't expect them to do anything. I think the biggest underdog of this tournament is probably Barrage. If you look at that lineup, you're kind of like, well, that's not full of the biggest names we expect. It really isn't. You've got a few good players in there. From what I understand, they had Lexity in there. I've actually seen 2 different rosters for this team, so I'm not entirely sure which one is the correct one.
The current one at the minute is Urban, Bant, LXT, and Rush. I think Dominate and Rush kind of had to like trade it out for whatever reason.
Yeah, because that's what I saw with Dominating, but I've also got one with Rush.
Yeah, Rush is the new replacement for Dominate.
I think Rush is a fantastic player, and honestly, I think those 2 players are, you know, both very good. So, however, it's kind of irrelevant because I don't really believe that team's good enough to win the event. I don't believe they're good enough to take on the Americans, and that's nothing against them. It's just that this is, you know, big leagues. This is an international, 8 incredible teams, and they're walking into a massive thing. I don't think they're going to come off, you know, the worst. I think they've got a good opportunity to upset a few other teams in there. I mean, maybe they can take their game against Millennium, possibly. But it's one of those things. Like, this team is... It's one of the ones, like I said, underdog. Maybe a dark horse. They'll actually upset a few teams.
They have the potential.
Yeah, but I don't really see them. I don't see them having some sort of Cinderella story winning the tournament. And I'm sure they've not gone there. They'll have gone there to win, but they won't be under any delusions that
they've probably gone to get out of the pool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you agree with the actual structuring of this event? Because obviously it's a bit unconventional, where we've seen Group A be, I think, the first, the third, the fifth, and the seventh seed, and then vice versa. We've got Group B, what's like the second, fourth, sixth, and eighth seed. Do you agree with that, or do you think it should be the more traditional 1, 4, 5, and 8, and so on?
To be honest with you, right, okay. From a completely non-player point of view,
Yeah.
don't care.
Fair enough. That's that answered.
It's one of those things where you have to realise that, you know, groups could be groups, right? There'll be groups. Some will be easier, some will be more difficult. But realistically, if you want to get into the final or even win the event, you have to play the best teams, right? You have to play these teams at some point in the tournament. If they're not in your group, you'll have to beat them in the bracket. Yeah. It's one of those where, you know, okay, some of them would like a little bit easier run on day one or day two, and then they'll get into the me games. If they can't beat those teams at one point, why would they be able to beat them at a different point? There's no time difference in college. You're not suddenly going to get better over the course of a weekend, or, you know, a team's not going to be weaker on the Sunday. It's going to be the same team all the way through the tournament. So you have to beat that team. Regardless of when you beat them, that's when you have to beat them.
Do you feel as if, you know, this second group, I mean, I think you've got it in front of you now. This group 2 is Revenge, Epsilon, Vitality, and FaZe. Do you think FaZe can kind of look at this, can see the fact that Epsilon and Vitality are kind of going for this roster mania? As we already mentioned, they're going to have a pretty under-practiced squad, both of them. Do you feel as if FaZe is probably going to look at this, kind of trying to lick their lips at the sense that, you know, Xylem, Manus, Zero, and Vortex can kind of go into this expecting to get out the group stages when otherwise they probably wouldn't?
You know, I find this group really interesting. I tell you why I find this group interesting. For me, it's full of kind of unknown, right? You look at it the whole way through. TR, right? They've been told recently they're not sticking.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of come out. They're not going to stay together after these 2 events. And for me, that's kind of, are they going to be as hungry? Are they going to want it as much? Is this a great Sarasa? I mean, we actually saw, if you take EG from back of Call of Duty Ghosts, they looked terrible day one of that tournament until the whole thing blew up, and they all kind of accepted that they were no longer going to be together after that event, and they played like the Col or the EG of old, and they were unbelievable. They stepped their game up to unbeatable levels, the World Championship levels when they played like that. Are we going to see the same thing from Team Revenge? Is that how this is going to be? They're going to just relax into it. They're going to just, you know what, we're just going to play here and absolutely smash people. So they could very easily be one of the biggest dominating forces in this tournament if they have the same mindset. Epsilon, Vitality, and FaZe. Honestly, you'd probably put Vitality and Epsilon above FaZe. Normally, you would do. I would do. But with the roster mania, do you make that call? Nobody's even confirmed what the final rosters are. It could literally be anybody. I could be in it.
I was about to say, is it
you? You know you're attending the event, but we don't know if you're casting.
It's me and 3 Jerds. That's the only way I'd have a hope of doing anything. That's like such a very interesting group for me. How that group is going to play out, I would not like to hazard a guess, and that's something I don't actually like doing going into tournaments. I don't like having no real idea of how it's going to go. I like kind of predicting, you know, this team's looking really strong. I'll also do what I usually do going into tournaments, and I'll speak to a lot of players night before, day before, even game before. How's your practice been? You know, what are you thinking? I'll find out even some personal stuff from them, like whether or not they want to play with this team, or if there's arguments. Now, that won't come out in the casting, but it'll be one of those things that I kind of base predictions on, for the reason that things like body language and stuff. It's actually, you're kind of trying to get in the player's head and assess their mentality and assess where they've been. Because yes, they could play great last week, but what if they've had a few issues? If they're arguing, they don't trust each other as much anymore. It's very much on the day games. You want as much information to find out as possible. And right now, I don't have any information to go on for 2 of the teams. You just don't. You don't know, you know, what's happened in the background. Nobody's confirmed anything yet. You know, anything could happen. They could be unhappy. They could have been forced into some situations, and it could have any roster.
I was just about to say, it's like, obviously, if you're one of these last-minute pickups for these teams, you know, Rush is probably an example. Whatever happens with Vitality and Epsilon, do you feel as if that might motivate them a little bit more? I mean, McGee was probably the best example, but now, obviously, the whole situation with Vitality, unfortunately.
I miss McGee.
I was about to say, I really want to see him playing at like a major event.
I do love McGee. McGee's issue, and his only ever issue, is that he's a little bit lazy. He doesn't want to practice as much as he should do. And he's been called out for it a few times before in the past, but generally he's always been good enough And I really wanted to kind of see, especially since I've heard he's been in a lot of practice recently, I really wanted to see him play. On the terms of pickups, if you remember back to the last ESWC, Shane didn't attend and they picked up Rated. And TCM played fantastic that event. They went all the way to the grand final until they come against, like I said, that rejuvenated EG who basically looked like a hurricane of godlike Call of Duty. But Rated made a serious name for himself there. He really did. And I think that's what a lot of players are looking to do now. They know they need to get into the big teams. Admittedly, people want to always get into TCM and Epsilon simply because the name's been there for so long now. Getting into those teams is kind of like you're good enough. And the international community will also take an eye on it. So, yeah, for anybody coming into these teams, it's a lot of the weight is on their shoulders because if you're coming in as a pickup to a major, it's always going to be like, if the team underperformed, it's your fault. If it overperforms, that's when they might be going, is this guy A, going to be picked up permanently? B, does he deserve a better team?
That's an interesting point because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Vitality wanted to take McGee to ESWC, not have him officially on the roster, but obviously trial him out and do exactly what you just said there and then see if they overperform. I personally feel like FaZe France have a really good chance of getting out of their group. Obviously, I think one thing that we forget is the fact that they won at Meltdown Paris, a LAN event, and they were against some exceptional teams like Pulse and Hyper Games. So they're going to have the experience on LAN, and obviously, as you said, with the drama going on over at Vitality and Epsilon, we really don't know what rosters are actually going to end up being there. So
yeah,
I guess you really
rate FaZe
answered
France. I do rate FaZe France. I think it's a team that will either perform on a day or it won't. They'll either be good enough or they won't. And I don't think it'll be one of those where they win one or two of their games and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're coming out of groups, and then they'll progress hard through the rest of the tournament. I think it's one of those games that those teams will be either smash their group and be like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" or they just won't win anything. For me, it's simply the level of competition is where they got to set their benchmark.
So they either are going to turn up or not, pretty much.
Yeah, I think the team is good enough, and good French teams are rare. If I'm honest, there have been good French teams in the past. It's inconsistent. You'll have a good French team one event, and the next event they'll all underperform. Or, you got to think all the way back to things like when Mythics were, they won an event back in Europe. That's been a long time since a major event has been won by a French team. You've got to look when, Tommy's been in the French team, they have all performed a lot better. And this is it. You don't know where, I never ever know where to stick a French team until you see them play. Simply because, like I said, they're either going to be really good and they're going to be unconventional. They're usually quite fast paced. They do love to go full kind of throttle all the time, and that can throw a lot of teams off. I think the Americans will struggle a little bit with them. But like I said, it's so difficult to place a French team, especially when they don't play in as many tournaments some of the UK teams are doing. They don't go over to America as much.
Inconsistent is the word.
It's not inconsistency though. I don't think it's inconsistency. I think it's more the lack of exposure to maybe the international tournaments for them.
That's interesting. If we just switch back to, obviously, because there's two groups, we'll switch back to Group A. We've got Denial Esports, Optic Gaming, Millennium, and Barrage Esports. Do you think it's dead cert not dead cert, but do you think that there's any likelihood of maybe Denial or Optic Gaming not going through in that pool? Because obviously you've got Millennium, who've recently picked up Gataga, his brother, Carnage. Yeah. It's a good roster. I think a lot of people are overlooking it. Do you feel like they've got a good chance of getting out of that pool?
That team will always have a chance. They will always have a chance. Unfortunately, the group they're in, that chance is not very big.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against them. I would actually kind of like to see that team in maybe a bigger tournament. I'd like to see them in a bigger tournament with more teams, and I'd love to see them kind of play in that tournament and see how they progress and how they really stack up. I think it's unfortunate they're in this group because the two Americans you said, Optic and Denial, are just phenomenal. You're talking about Denial, the world champions.
Yep. And
you're talking about Optic Gaming, the team who, admittedly, apart from world champs, has looked stellar all year long.
C+.
And that's kind of like, how do you be fair to Millennium in that scenario? Go, I think you could take it. You can't. How delusional would you have to be to go? Oh yeah, I think they'll come out of the group. Those teams. No, it's not being unfair to them because they're a great team. It's just going, you're a great team. But the teams you've got to beat are elite level. They're the best in the world.
I feel like the only thing they have going for them is the fact that they're on home soil. You know,
Yeah.
Getago behind that,
Yeah.
you know, that French crowd is absolutely mad, and they can do
is.
wonders. But the reality is, as you said, the talent they have in that pool is just ridiculous. Would you agree with that, Rage?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned about the home soil thing, I believe last year in the ESWC, I could be wrong on this, it's just going off the top of my head, but I think Vitality played Epsilon, and that was kind of a matchup where everyone expected Epsilon to win. On paper, Epsilon was so much better, and in the history before the game, they was all playing very considerably better than Vitality. And then obviously, as soon as this French crowd got behind them, uplifted Getago, especially Tommy, who recently joined that team just before the event. For him to kind of experience the fact that he has all these French people behind him just screaming his name, and he can't speak a word of French, I feel as if, you know, that's always going to have a factor. And that always follows Getago no matter what team he goes. So I think, especially with his brother Carbon, who's still kind of new to the whole LAN environment. I mean, obviously he's been to LANs before. He's been to more LANs than me, but he's still quite young. And so obviously I have a feeling that having such a massive support from his own fans, speaking his own language, I feel as if that's going to help him play better. Carnage is obviously...
I love Carnage.
Carnage is...
Carnage is one of my favourite people. He's such a nice guy, but he's the most intense-looking man you've ever met.
Yeah,
He looks like he's just about to fly into a rage, but it's actually really nice. It's really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that, like I said, Millennium are a really good squad, and I would like to see them play more tournaments. I just think it's unfortunate that they're in this group where, let's face it, Optic and Denial, who you'd probably put them in the final. If you were going to pick, which two teams would you expect to see in the final? Those would be the two teams.
It'd be really thrilling if it was, because obviously there's a lot of rivalry between them. Obviously, as you said, Denial won COD champs, and Optic were, you know, the clear favourites going into it. So I think they really want revenge, even though they're playing with Enable. I consider Enable to be quite a good replacement. We don't know how they're going to, perform with him, but I feel like it's going to be really interesting. And if that is the final, I'm just super pumped for it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those safe bets. I mean, I try not to go and say random bets. I mean, some people like to kind of throw things out there and throw, assumptions and kind of predictions on a whim. For me, it's all about past and how they've been performing. Like I said, then you added a few little factors where maybe you've seen something on the side or you know something that you can't really say. But it's one of those ones where, as much as you'd like to say to every team and every team's fan base, "Oh yeah, your team's great, they'll do great," you have to be realistic. That's not my job. My job is not to be your fan. It's to kind of accurately gauge where you're going to come in a tournament. And sometimes that's harsh. Sometimes that is harsh. Sometimes you have to go, your team's not good enough to win this event. Millennium, like I said, I do wonder if that team is a little bit of a god squad, if they're going to be good enough. Like I said, it would be one of the ones I'd actually like to see them in the other group. I'd like to see them in the other group. Yeah. I think that it'd be it would be very entertaining to see them in that other group. This group is, like I said, it's a little bit death group, but not for the fact that you don't know who's going to come out, more than the fact that you kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to talk about is the way it works is the first of the first group plays the second of the second group. It's kind of a seeding tradition we've already seen, and that pretty much means that if our predictions and our kind of suspicions as it is, they're going to see an All-American game some way. We're going to see either Denial or Optic, I'm blank there, play against Revenge, exactly. So we're going to see that game, unless obviously Revenge or one of the American teams significantly underperform.
The thing to know about Revenge is I got a bit of information about the reasons why they're actually disbanded. It's not just the fact that obviously they haven't been able to get in the Pro League. It's also the fact that apparently they have actually been arguing behind the scenes. So that could be another, I think...
Well, that leads credence to kind of what I was saying about EG. EG had the same issue.
Yeah, and they played very well. I mean, they won the event, so if that's the case, then do we see Revenge going all the way to the final? I mean, it'll be quite a nice send-off for them to win 50k, well, obviously not win 50k, but win a large proportion of that 50k prize pool. Yeah. Especially considering they're all very young.
They said it's one of those ones where we'll find out on bracket day, right? I think they'll come out of the group. I do think they'll come out of the group. Like I said, unless we've missed something, unless they have all fallen down or they are having arguments. But you know what? I haven't seen that much of it. Tommy, obviously, you've got a bit more inside track on that. It's completely down to how they play on the day. And COD is such an on-the-day game that these factors, until you see that team perform for the first time, you don't know if they're going to hit. I mean, we could see them turn up and absolutely just play terribly and lose their first game, and then suddenly they lose another game, and they're like, well, that's it, they're done. well, that's it. It's just happened. No one predicted it. And in the third game, they might be back on form and go, oh, they've just swept somebody. But it's too late. So you really don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're good enough to kind of pull it out and go through the groups. Seeing them against some of the American teams, that'll be interesting as well. Because Optic obviously have got a lot to prove this event. I know that they would seriously not happy at champs. Denial, you know what, if they can get another event win and then potentially go to Gfinity the week after, that'll be kind of the start of a legacy for them.
Yeah.
It's a lot to fight for. There is a lot to fight for.
And that's I really want to. I'm looking forward to that game where it's pretty inevitable that it is going to be two American teams play as one of the first games on the bracket day. And it's going to be obviously Denial versus Revenge or Optic versus Revenge. And the whole kind of backstory between those two teams is going to make it very interesting. Obviously, Revenge and Denial, COD champs last year. And then so on and so forth. It's going to be very, very interesting. These three American teams all are kind of linked some way or another in terms of stories and rivalry. It's kind of the same with the European teams as well, especially with this Epsilon and Vitality merged together. One thing, yeah, that would be a great matchup. But one thing what I want to kind of hint on is this Vitality Storm roster, because I believe last night Gfinity did a S&D online cup. I had the pleasure of losing quite early on, but I believe...
Wait, you played?
Unfortunately, yeah, I played.
I thought you were washed. No?
Washed? He's never been something to be washed.
Well,
how could he's not even
he reckons he's been a competitive player,
No.
as he phrases.
No. As I was saying, this suspected Vitality team won the Gfinity last night. I believe it was Marky B, Reedy, Watson, and Petey. They all played together, and they did pretty well. I mean, they won it, so you can't go too wrong.
Does sound like a good team.
I was just about to say, what's your opinions on that team?
Honestly, the big thing in that team for me is Marky, and I'll tell you why. That's a big thing in that team. Marky is a leader. If you put somebody else in that roster, say JT maybe, they would perform. They'll be really, really good. But I think when it comes to the big moments, they might struggle a little bit. Which is why I like Marky B. Marky B, everybody knows, eats, sleeps, COD. Just does. Very passionate man. Very, very kind of get your head in the game. He will call out frequently, and he's a hype man. Watson's very confident in his own ability at the moment. He had a really good time at champs, as we know, which is why Aware kind of stopped being Aware. PD's performed well as well. Reedy's a really good player. It's a team that has great components, and it's just they're great components, but they have to be more than the sum of their parts, and that's where Marky comes in. That's why I think he's one of the key players. If that team can gel and become more than the sum of their parts, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. If they don't, then it'll be an average team at best.
I mean, to me, Marky B, we've seen him play under the old Vitality team. What's really weird saying that, considering it's still technically a new team, where it was Tommy, Reedy, Marky B, and McGee, and we kind of seen Tommy and Marky B a little bit bash heads a little bit, because as you said, both of them are leaders. Tommy's obviously very vocal. Marky B's very vocal. So when they kind of clash together, one's going go to the left, one's going to the right. It's a little bit.
This is my favorite thing about Tommy. Tommy's actually one of my key players to watch at all times. Two reasons. One, the way he moves around a map is actually very fluid and very, very confident. And you can always tell when a player is going to be good when you watch that. All the way back to things like Modern Warfare 3. You go watch some of his montages. Amazing. But if you watch, no matter what happens in a game or around, he does not keep his mouth shut. He will tell the other team. Even when he was teaming with Epsilon, right? You go back to watch regionals. Go watch when they watch the player shots, and you'll see Tommy. They're winning rounds, right? This is the Epsilon team that's winning rounds, and he's still looking like he's angry. He's not angry, but he's so intense. He's like, "This is what we need to do. We need to do this," and he's plotting things out. So he's working out strategies. Tommy is a counter player, and he always has been a counter player. He doesn't play a strategy; he plays your strategy against you.
Yeah, and
I would hate to play against that. That would just drive me insane.
But that's why we sit here and talk and don't play.
That's why we don't play the game.
No, but obviously,
that's why we can sit back and relax.
Yeah, the whole Marky B and Tommy clash. So as you mentioned, I feel as if Marky B is now going to be the leader for that team if that team does happen. Again, it's not confirmed. Reedy and Marky B have kind of formed this duo ship since Infused, and they've kind of carried it on forward. So I'm quite happy to see that happening. Hopefully that continues as well, because they seem to play very well together. They both seem to run S&D strats together, and they seem to be buddying up and so on and so forth. Watson and PE is kind of another duo as well. You know, aware, and prior to that, they've always teamed together. They played extremely well at champs. A lot of them said they sometimes carried the JT and Joe. Again, it's down to
It's opinion.
Ooh, he's looked at me. I don't like that sigh and the shake of the head. I'm sure he's gonna.
All right. You know what? I love Watson, but there was a little bit of an egomaniac going on.
Yeah, he was. Straight
and
up
I think he could admit it as well. Now, yes, Watson played phenomenal. Yes, so did Pete. A team is not always going to have all 4 players go off. It just isn't going to happen that often. It doesn't ever happen. Someone will always die a little bit. I think JT had a really good set of games as well. I think he did perform. Watson did genuinely amaze me when I watched some of it, because I actually had the pleasure of not casting one of his games, but actually standing behind him, and I watched it and just went, holy... That was ridiculous. He put up a 3-piece to get the flag home, and he was playing out of skin. That's probably the best I've seen. That was Watson the Warlock. So things I've only ever seen him do, magical things. And he was. And PD's a known factor. I was casting a game with PD, and I said, I think it was right S&D, and I said, PD's going to rush them. But they look for PD for entry kills. Not many teams will rely on that strategy in Search and Destroy to just let a lunatic go forward, because it can cause you a massive disadvantage on attack. And PD went straight forward and picked up the kills. And it rotated around to the next time they're on attack, and the caster with me said, "All right, I think they're going to play it slow this time." I went, "He's not. It worked last time. He's going to do it again." I said, "He's going to do it again." He's going to go straight at them. And lo and behold, there he went straight at him again. Got an extra kill. I mean, eventually they did stop him. I think third attack. But PD's always been fast and furious. There's a reason, and I call this weird thing, the TCM and Epsilon factor, right? If you play for TCM and Epsilon, they think so carefully about their pickups, so very carefully, that they will have seen something that maybe I've not seen, maybe fans haven't seen.
As a player,
people won't have seen. They do look at it so differently. That's the reasons why sometimes, even when they win events, players will be dropped, because they know that there's a problem here, or there's a communication problem, or they know that they've been at the top for a long time. Those players have been the same players for a long time. And when it comes into that kind of top echelon of top 2, top 3 teams, it's a whole different world in terms of what you pick up. They'll look at everything.
Yeah, and to be honest, a lot of people, this isn't just my opinion, it kind of was the popular opinion, is like, Watson, when he was playing on that away lineup, kind of lived underneath the shadow of PE to a sense. I mean, PE was the most known player on that team in the sense as he was on Epsilon before that, and he was always playing very, very well, and so he had a little bit more exposure. Yeah. Not bad. Getting called out straight away. Oh gosh.
Just carry on. Composure, Rage.
Composure, yeah.
Rage has no composure for anything.
Wow.
And that's the proof. That is the proof right there.
Straight there. But as I was saying before, you decide to hate on me once again. Apparently, Bryce hates me. That's a thing. But
I don't hate you. I don't care enough about you to hate you.
No, but as I was saying, oh no. The thing is, Petey was always known as for being the player who was the best on that team. And then after champs, Watson, in fact, after regionals, Watson kind of said, you know what, I'm going to step into the limelight. I'm going to become the player who I am. And he's now kind of got a lot more of the spotlight. And as a result, we kind of mentioned he has a little bit of an ego because of it, but he has been playing extremely well in the last couple of events, be it regionals and be it champs.
Every top player has an ego. I think the
they're the best.
A lot of people, I think a lot of people that have said that about Watson are just like, oh, he's got it. I think it's normal. I think everything he's done is normal. You can't take away from him anything, simply because he is good. And if you're good and you can back it up, it's not an ego, it's facts, and that's all it is. And Watson kind of, I don't think it's an ego of Watson. I think it's a hunger. Watson wants to do so well, and he tells people that. And that's what it is. It's not. It's sitting there saying he has an ego. I think is one of those things where it comes across negatively. I think it's not an ego. I think it's hunger in that regard.
Okay, and I believe Tommy's. You should know. Tommy's the American person of the show. He knows more about the American scene than me. I believe you got a little bit of an update in the.
So, well, thank Goalie because he's just posted it in the chat. But it's now been made official that Nagafan, I think it was, is actually going to be moving over to Prophecy. Obviously, he was a member that was on the Team Revenge lineup. Obviously, yesterday they got announced to be disbanding. Or the day before, I think it was. So that's quite interesting because I've also heard a couple of rumors. I don't really like rumors too much, but I've heard that potentially Prophecy is going to be the Team Revenge lineup. and that's why Team Revenge haven't obviously been announced for Gfinity, but they may be attending under Prophecy. But that's just a rumor I've heard. Obviously, that's quite interesting because Nagafan used to be with Team Revenge, and now he's obviously moved over with, I think, Aqua, who's over there as well. So that's, two halves of it, well, 2/4 even. So what do you guys make of that? Is there any real thoughts on that?
There's no real massive surprises there. We knew that those teams were going to disseminate. We knew that they were going places. Once you have a team, as well as Revenge did at Champs, all of a sudden their players become hot property.
Yeah.
They will do. Every team will go, you know what? Let's take him, or let's take that person, or who do you want to play with? They'll go places wherever they want to go now. So we knew that was kind of just going to happen, and Prophecy was easily one of those teams that it could have been.
Yeah, to be honest, just to basically echo what Bryce said, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, he's played so well at the biggest competition of the year, Champs.
It makes stripes.
It makes sense that a lot of these teams are going to want them on board and be a part of their team and want to team with them. So you're going to see all these roster changes kind of accommodate for these players now being free agents and wanting to get into the league. Anyway, that was a little bit of an American talk. We're going to actually go for a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about ESWC and maybe talk a little bit about Gfinity, what's the weekend after. I'm sure Bryce knows a lot more about that than me. A little bit. So
it's not like he works there.
Exactly. So we'll go for a break. We'll see you on the other side of a minute. See you in a bit. Hey guys, and welcome back from the STiKS EU. Again, we're here with Bryce, the guest, and my partner in time, partner in crime.
Whoa, what did you call me? Whoa, that's a bit of an insult.
Seriously.
Yo, you need to go back to school.
I do need. To be honest, I'm still in school. No, I'm not in school.
I think you were trying to be a caster or something.
Yeah, I think
I'm trying.
Language is meant to be the best thing about you.
But yeah, moving on. I'm just gonna put this completely in the opposite direction. Let's go straight to Gfinity because then we're not talking about me. Gfinity kind of announced after ESWC they're going to have their Masters. I think it's the Spring Masters, one of the two Masters coming up. Obviously, Bryce will know a little bit more about that because I'm just, reading what I'm reading. A lot of American teams are here because ESWC, so they're in Europe, so it makes sense for them to attend Gfinity. I believe the American teams coming over is Denial, both the Optic teams, Envious, FaZe, Prophecy, TCM, TK, SB, and I believe that's it. I probably missed something. It was so stacked.
You've got Mind Freak.
I was about to say,
Australia
we've got Mind Freak coming over from Australia. It's basically the top talent from around the world all coming over to London to compete in this Gfinity Masters. Bryce,
yes.
What do you think going into the event? Obviously, all these teams coming over from all around the world.
Well, I think about stuff, money, gaming. What do you mean?
I was like, what's your first initial thoughts knowing that all these teams from around the world, be it America, be it Australia, be it France, be it the best in the UK, all coming together in London? How do you think it's going to go down in terms of who do you think is going to win?
Who do you think's going to win? Okay, that was a long question to get to a point.
Rage is not good. I think we should drop Rage out of the call.
Worst phrasing of a question I've ever heard. Well, you just say who do you think's going to win the event rather than
Rage,
300
take
words
a
that come
moment,
before it.
take a deep breath and just,
Jesus. I mean, you got to be looking at some of the American teams for this. Let's be honest. It's a difficult one. For a long time I like to put the European teams at the top. A little bit biased. Problem being is that they haven't performed in recent memory.
Yeah.
G3 being the last one I can remember them, or maybe ESWC. So you kind of got to go with the Americans, and then you got to look at the big hitters we've got coming. I mean, every single one of these teams we've got coming, from Optics, both Optics, Denial, Envy, Strictly Business, Caliber, FaZe, and Prophecy, could potentially take this event easily. It's going to be a massive battle for them. A lot of sore points from champs are still kind of niggling away at the back of their heads. So going to kind of predict it there. Top three, you can't really go, oh, well, Denial look like they might not do it because everyone's like world champs. So you would put them number one right now. You would put them number one. After that, couple of unknown quantities, couple of team changes. It's not the easiest way to want to predict.
What's your predictions, Tommy?
There's so many teams. I don't feel like It's so hard to know. I feel like this weekend ESWC is going to give us a better kind of representation of how teams are doing that are actually attending the events. So the likes of Denial Optic, Vitality, and Epsilon. I think they're the only ones that are then attending Gfinity. But I mean, we don't even know how they're going to do the structuring. We don't know if it's going to be 4 pools of 4 or it's going to just be a straight up double elimination bracket. We really don't know. And until we find out who's in whose pool, I think one of the biggest things we have to consider, and I'm sure Gfinity have actually thought about this, is how do we actually seed all of these teams? Because we've got Mindfreak from Australia, we've got a bunch of American teams, we've got a team from France, a team from Spain, teams from the UK. I mean, there's so many teams from different areas that compete in different cohorts of Call of Duty that I feel like until we find out how they're going to get seeded and what's the actual formatting for the event, that's when we can actually.
I know the answer to that question.
I was just about to say. Surely you must know, Bryce. Do you want to?
I do know.
Spill the beans. Tell us a little bit. Oh.
There will be an announcement shortly. I got.
How short is shortly?
Copied in a few emails recently. I can't announce the announcement because I think it's being kind of finalised now.
Oh, okay, let's just move on.
All I can say is I'm fairly certain people will appreciate the way we're going to do things. It's one of my kind of personal ways to do it.
Yeah.
So I can't say too much because I don't want to be fired.
Just say it. Don't worry about it. Go.
Just say it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's actually not how life works.
Do it.
No. So yeah, look. All I can say is that you guys will love it. You'll think it's a great way of doing it. So that's it. That's all I can leave it.
Interesting. I wanted to just bring up the CEO of Denial actually was put out a tweet saying how he doesn't think the majority of big teams. I don't know how you can really class big teams, but he feels like for big teams to attend and it to be major events. He feels like the event should be have a big prize pool of the likes of 50k plus. Do you think that's maybe a downside to this tournament that it's only 25k and obviously a lot of teams are having to travel? I don't know how the arrangements are.
I think this is something I can say. So this is an unshouted kind of thing. We don't probably say it as much as we should do. We pay for all travel and accommodation.
Okay, I didn't know that.
All of these teams are paid travel and accommodation. Mm-hmm. And if any of you want to go out there and do a little bit of research on just how much that actually costs, I invite you to go and do it. I really do. I
was wondering about that because obviously, if that isn't the case, then obviously with the prize pool only being 25k, you wonder whether some teams will maybe attend again. But now that you've cleared that up, that kind of makes sense, I guess. But
I think that's one of the things people missed. And you know what? It's not anyone's fault, but every single, because we've done a huge season, right? Huge season, 30 events over 7 months. Mm-hmm. Every single event, apart from the opens, has the teams paid travel and accommodation. And the reason that's so fantastic is that none of these teams have to worry about whether or not they can afford to fund their team to come. We bring the best teams with no strings attached and no gateways to stop anybody coming. That's the biggest thing about it, right? Say you've got a great team, but funding them, say if you're an American organization, funding them over the pond to us is not cheap. By the time you pay for flights, accommodation, especially since a lot of them like to come a little bit early to kind of get away from jet lag, you're talking a very substantial chunk of change where maybe even some of the prize pools, even if you come first, it's still like, wow, they all might not get their money back. Well, they almost certainly won't get their money back. So the fact that any team can come, any organisation can come, it's very open, it's very inclusive. We bring the best, like I said, with no gateways.
Talking about exclusivity, you're obviously, the event's going to be hosted in the Gfinity Arena, kind of a new addition to the Gfinity brand. How are you feeling introducing that to these Americans? Because obviously they've got the MLG Arena where they go for their playoffs and so on and so forth. Are you excited knowing that all these Americans and these Australians are going to come over and experience the Gfinity Arena for the first time? Do you feel it's going to encourage?
Yes, the arena is awesome.
It's sick.
I think a lot of people love it. It's hard to kind of grasp what it's like from pictures and not being there. I think it's a lot bigger than people think it is. I think
it's like 500 people, doesn't it? At least.
Yeah, there is. It's really, like I said, it's one of those ones where, like I said, until you're there, I didn't really get it until I first went there. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's another room here, there's a corridor here that goes to Pro Lounge. I mean, the Pro Lounge, I don't think many pictures have come out of the Pro Lounge, but it's probably one of the best Pro Lounges we've had. Speaking of the seating, it's the most comfortable seats in esports, we'll have to say that.
Well, it's cinema seats, isn't it? So yeah, they're obviously going to be very comfortable.
It's some of the best cinema seats I've ever sat in as well.
All right.
So they're really comfortable, especially if you get in the VIP section with like a leather. It's basically like a leather chair. So yeah, so I think people are gonna love it. I think people are gonna come down to Gfinity. Well, they should do. They will love the experience. There is even codes for things like cheaper deals of popcorn and drink. It's going to be an amazing spectator experience. The players are going to be really close. It's a very kind of great atmosphere in there at the same time. I think the people are going to enjoy it. It's one of the things we wanted to do. We wanted to have a lot of crowd. We had, if you go back to G1 and G2, G1 was actually a closed event. Yeah. G2 I think was 300 people. We only had 300 people in there. Now we're talking about every single weekend seats are 500.
It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. It's a massive.
It's not, obviously we kind of learned that lesson from G3, the copper box, where we had like 4,000 people sitting in there. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures. Some of you will have experienced it. It was phenomenal. The fact we had to close down another stage for a while just because we had so many Call of Duty fans says to me that we were going along the right direction.
I mean, it's kind of humbling to see, I imagine, for you guys. I mean, obviously, Martin was on the show a couple of weeks ago at Champs, and he was talking about how fast the progress has been for Gfinity as a company, being, as you said, a closed event at G1, where I believe it was like at the top of a building, like just a skyscraper or something like that. It was like a studio, right? G1? It was like...
it was, yeah.
Yeah, so being there to selling out an Olympic stadium, the Copper Box, and now having your own arena, it's insane, because that's only like a 2-year, 3-year span. So do you feel as if that's kind of that's a way of highlighting the growth of esports, especially in the UK, because of Gfinity?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things very close to our heart is the UK esports is always going to be a part of Gfinity. The fact that we've grown like this is I think it's some of the aspirations of the people in the company. We just want to keep going bigger and bigger. Whatever events we do in the future are outside of the season or whatever, I can promise you there'll be again a whole new level. This is not, just where we're going to go. It's simply going to get bigger and better. And we hope that everybody who comes to our events, watches online, interacts with us through Twitter or social media, comes with us.
And again, talking about the internationality, you've got the Australians coming over now, but it's the same roster what actually finished 6th at Champs. How do you feel they're going to square up? I mean, they did pretty well at Champs. Do you feel as if
they did? They did. It was a surprise again. Although the Australian commentators were very, very enthusiastic about this team, more so than they were last year, which we kind of went, well, you know what, this could be interesting. Mind Freak are a good squad. However, last year at Champs, if I remember correctly, and I may get this wrong, they did very well at Champs. The top team was Team on Dodgers at the time.
Yeah.
Their next event they came to, they didn't. I think it was an MLG. They didn't perform anywhere near as well. Yeah, they didn't perform anywhere near as well. That's the event where TCM came third. So is there going to be the same curse? Are they going to be able to step up again? I think this is for me where it gets real, right? If Mind Freak do well again, that means for every event after this, if they're not there, you'd be like, well, but Mind Freak weren't there, right? That's where you got to go. Right? If they do well again this time, you've got to say, yeah, but Mind Freak have got to be one of now the top 8 teams in the world, or they've got to be the top X team in the world. If they do it two international events, well, that's where you've got to go, well, now they're one of the best teams in the world. We need to see them again. We need to see them consistently at international events.
That's a good
if they
point.
can do it, if they do it this time, if they do it in another event, at that point, that's kind of going, well, now they have to be there for anybody to go, well, they're the top 8 team in the world. And that's what I'm quite excited about. I'm excited to see if Mind Freak can consistently put up that performance. If they can, it changes a little bit of the status quo, simply because the American teams have always kind of been like, everyone's kind of the top 8 in the world, right? Is that now an Australian team, if they consistently can place in, top 8s of these kinds of events, they would be, you would struggle to kind of get an argument against them being a top 8 team. So that's what I'm quite excited about for Mind Freak.
Just laughing at the chat because Kingdom Soldier is just pointing out Tommy's glasses situation, but
right, I'm getting annoyed.
Right, go for it. Go on, have a run, go.
Kingdom needs to shut up. I'll wear my glasses when I want to wear my glasses. No, you carry on. I'll filter in a second.
You just cry for a little bit.
I'll just cry. I'll just be like.
As I was saying, is some of these European teams who aren't at ESWC, for example, Hyper Games, Infused, and you can kind of class TCM as a European team as well. Obviously, they are in America now, but they are British players. Do you feel as if any of them, especially this Infused roster, what was Exertus formerly, then they moved over to Infused, do you feel as if they're going to maybe surprise a few people in the Gfinity? I mean, it all depends on how the groups works. You kind of have a little bit of a unique insight. Don't really want you to say that, but do you feel as if we might see some upsets from some of the lesser-known teams?
Yes. Simply because we cannot have an event like this without a few upsets. Very rarely nowadays, the Call of Duty events run to schedule. No, I can't think of an event in recent memory where everyone's gone, every single bracket we predicted has gone this way. Take a look at Champs, for instance, right? That event was absolutely mind-blowing. I was getting updates to the caster desk like, this can't be right. There's someone's trolling me here. All the top seeds are out or are dropping. Just phenomenal, right? Like you got to think all the teams that had a Champs ring went out like quite early in their roster.
That's true.
So I think we're always going to see upsets. We saw, say, I don't know, G3 for instance. Epsilon took down Optic, first round of the day, Sunday morning. And we were like, holy, that was a massive game. And all of a sudden, there it went. So, I think you will see upsets. I think there will be teams that maybe haven't prepared enough, maybe don't have a good day. Maybe one of their players woke up a little bit feeling ill. Maybe a team just got that fire for the day.
They just didn't have their favorite breakfast.
Yeah, feeling ill. Feeling ill.
Feeling ill.
Yes.
Lies.
Yes, feeling ill.
I guess the next point we want to kind of go on to is obviously this is an international event. So we've talked about it when obviously the EU teams go over to America, but is jet lag going to be a factor? I don't want to kind of go into it too much because some people think it's nonsense.
This is the issue. I genuinely have no idea because
what?
And all right, because
have you never travelled to America or?
I travel to America and back quite frequently.
Yeah.
But
that's why
I'm talking about me, who if I'm a bit of a tired, I'll sit and play Netflix. Well, I don't have to go and perform at a top level with my reactions and my split-second decision making. Has to be almost flawless. So I can't commentate on, especially since how it affects me. Now players have gone back and forth and said it doesn't affect us. Okay. Players have come back and forth and said, yeah, I was a little bit tired. I generally don't know. It's very, very difficult to go, well, of course there's jet lag acceleration, and then a player doesn't feel it, or they adapt better. Yeah. Or maybe say, oh, no, you can't go on, it doesn't affect anybody, it's rubbish. Because what if it does? What if a player has struggled sleeping?
It'd be interesting to see if some testing was done, because it's like an area that's it's only done by opinion, really.
Yeah.
I can just imagine that now when you say testing, I'm just thinking like a lab rat situation, but with a pro player of those weird suction pads on the head.
No, but it'd be interesting to get someone from Australia to come over to Britain and then to test their reaction, and I don't know really what could be conducted, but I think it'd be an interesting point to actually kind of settle the matter, because you're right in saying that some people do travel and they just don't feel it. And I mean, from my personal experience, I've been to America twice, and I notice a considerable difference. And then if you got to play on top of that under pressure, I can see where it could happen. But obviously, we don't know because we're not the player.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of that, because I don't really want to talk about players because I don't have experience playing. Tommy, I'm pretty sure you don't have experience playing. I think Price at one stage you did play. So you kind of have a little bit badly. I mean, you're pretty bad now, but yeah. So we're gonna go through questions in Twitter as he's looking at me very, very concerning for my life. But yeah, we're gonna go for questions in Twitter. Moving it straight forward. We tweeted out asking if you have any questions to ask about ESWC or to ask Bryce in general, and we've got quite a few. Some of them are good, some of them wasn't so good.
Some were very good.
Some were very
Bryce
good.
And Rage.
No.
Yeah, we'll ask that one at the end. I've
So yeah, the first question is calling up from Shadow Zex. I don't even know. We need an agreement as to like you have to have like a readable Twitter handle.
Yeah.
But he asks, what's the biggest factor in holding the EU scene back? So I'm going to ask obviously Bryce first as the guest. Tommy, you can chip in, and then I'll chip in, and then so on and so forth.
This is a question that comes up at the end of every single major where Europe doesn't perform. Honestly, there are quite a few factors. Infrastructure, which is something we at Gfinity are hoping to improve. I've always going to have UK COD esports at heart. I've always said I'll never do anything to harm Call of Duty esports as long as I draw breath. It's always going to be one of my things I'm very passionate about. A lot of good friends in the scene. That's where I started, right? Things like they don't generally want to be fans. There's a lot of people who don't want to kind of be fans of people in the UK. So yeah, and some of that's because of attitudes of people in the scene, and some of it's because some of the EU pros don't really see themselves as a brand or see themselves as a personality or a role model, or don't even think people look up to them. They just know they're very good at COD. Take Swanee, for instance, right? I love Swanee to bits, and he's actually getting a lot of recognition on the international scene. And he's getting international recognition as a brand. But that is not Swanee. That was not Swanee's, prerogative. He said in a recent interview that he couldn't really grasp that side of it. And that attitude, what he said was, I'm just concerned on winning. That is the attitude that players have in Europe, is all I want to do is win. So everything else kind of becomes superfluous. They don't see themselves as top-level competitive players. They don't, streaming and all that sort of stuff goes out the window. Very few players will do that on a regular basis. Tommy being one of them, and he's reaped the benefits. Marky being another one. He's one of the main faces of European Call of Duty. There isn't enough of it, and part of that's to do with the fact that internet...
Oh, dear.
Oh, he's gone down again. Oh, no, he's back. Bryce?
Oh, no, he's going to go
Bryce?
Surely.
Hey, I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, I think you had a little bit of a lag or something.
I think it's your producer, because I did actually have a little swear there.
So
what did I get to?
Calling out the producer. You're about to have like a picture over your face of like.
Yeah.
I think goalie.
Where did I get to?
You was talking about
Marky B and Tommy.
Yeah, so Marky B and Swanee, they've done it and they've become big bases, and generally that's helped them, right? I love the fact that they went out and they did YouTube and they've done streaming, but the fact that I'm only naming 2 players, kind of tells you. I mean, Jake's had a little bit going at it before he kind of retired. People like Bizzle maybe has tried a little bit. Sours, for instance, still kind of does YouTube, and he did do YouTube and it helped him a lot, I think. I just wish more players would do it, but like I said, part of that is the reason, because the internet in this country is absolutely diabolical, and the government basically needs to pull their finger out and actually realise that they're a shower of shit and need to get it sorted out.
So, Bryce, are you running for Parliament?
Look, political stuff aside, it's.
You'll be quite a good Prime Minister.
I know. I would be fired so fast. I'd walk in and drop C-bombs and stuff. It just wouldn't work out well. Basically, like I said, internet is an issue in this country. The fact that I'm on a connection now, and bearing in mind, like, you guys probably like, where are you, Bryce? I'm actually very good place. Where I started, if anyone actually knows me, I started at a place called Extreme Gaming in my hometown. I'm actually there now because I was actually out for the day and I agreed to do this and was like, all right, I better borrow a laptop. So I'm actually there now, but right, this is the dead center of a town, right? Guess the upload speed.
I want to say something good, but
I'm going to say 40.
Considering that you've been lagging a little bit, I'm going to say 60.
Center of a town, center of a proper sized town, right?
It's going to be less than 60 or 40.
This is actually Britain's oldest recorded town and used to be capital of England.
Ooh, I'm going to say like 15. I don't think it's high at all.
Business line as well.
I'm going to say 20, go.
Okay.
You're lagging. What did you say?
1.
1?
What?
You're paying business line, you're getting 1 upload or download even.
Yeah, it's like 32. There are several. The upload is 1, download is 32. But that's indicative, right? How ridiculous is that?
Yeah. For
the infrastructure of a country, the same reason that people have wildly different kind of internet speeds. Even a good few friends of mine are struggling where BT have advertised a certain speed and they don't get it, or Virgin Media with their ridiculous streaming kind of throttling, which they've had in the past. it's difficult to have that kind of infrastructure to do it regularly and to stream regularly when you can't get the speeds or the download. For instance, I'm actually on radio broadband, and most of you won't even know what the hell that is. But I actually have a data cap at home, but I will get 32 up and down. If I didn't do that, where I lived, I could only get 1 up and 5 down. So that is, I've probably gone way too much about internet issues, but yeah, it's something that winds me up. But that is one of the.
Where are we going with this?
Can we bring this back?
It is one of the factors. I've got a whole rant about internet space in this country. So it is a factor. It's not the factor. I don't think there's any one thing you can put your thumb on. Yes, we need more people to play. Yes, we are a smaller country. Yes, the fact that Europe is a very large area with a lot of teams doesn't help the fact that those teams can't swap players because of language barriers. Yeah. But we say all of this, right? And then we realise that things like Counter-Strike have got a fantastic European scene. And suddenly it all becomes irrelevant. But that's obviously based on servers, so it is a little bit different. You can get 128 tick servers. They kind of help out a little bit, right? So there are a few factors. There's no one thing you put your finger on, apart from maybe REL. REL has ruined esports in this country. It's an inside joke for anyone who has no idea. See, there's not even an inside joke. That's a scene joke from several years back.
Yeah, my opinions, I'm going to keep it really, really short because Bryce just went on like a political campaign motivational speech.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go work for Bryce.
The question is, what's the biggest factor holding back the EU scene for any of those who kind of like forgot it after that whole parliamentary run? But personally, I feel as if the language barrier is also a thing, and the fact that there's not really that consistently good competition. I mean, you've got Gfinity Cups being pretty much every day now. You're always going to get the best competition out of them, but you only really see the best competition towards the latter stages where some of the random pickup teams, like I was playing last night, was,
Yeah, but you're never going to get to like even a quarterfinal.
Yeah, I'm just saying is like the practice what they're getting against me is not as good as the practice they'll be getting if there's in a league environment where they're playing against, the best in Europe. So I feel as that's also a factor. I believe, in fact, no, actually, I'm not going to go there. Tommy, carry on.
What were you going to say, Ray? Come on.
No. I mean, it's been hinted that Gfinity are doing it. Martin Wyatt came on the show. Martin Wyatt came on the show, and he kind of basically said that it's going to happen. He did. He didn't say it. But he said it. If that makes sense. He didn't say it, but he said it. So
something could be happening. I
think you've read something in between the lines, but I don't know what you've read. Yeah, I honestly feel like a league would do wonders for Call of Duty in Europe. I agree with you that language is one of the biggest problems because obviously, you got French, Spanish, all sorts coming into the mix, and it's a lot different. I don't think we can compare ourselves to the States and the NA scene because that's kind of where Call of Duty esports kind of in a way came from with MWG, kind of acting as the national governing body. So I feel like
that's
I'm gonna get roasted for that.
Well, I mean, you have a good point. You have a good point.
But I mean, Gfinity.
It's just a very weird way of putting it. Yes, the infrastructure over in America is a lot better at the moment.
Yeah.
But there was a point where it was no longer on the circuit, which point we kept it alive.
That's true.
And we had the better rules.
Modern Warfare 3, I can remember the
Black Ops 1, we had the better rules. I actually went back and watched the Black Ops montage the other day.
We could literally argue this for days.
I can't remember about Black Ops 1, but I can remember Modern Warfare 3 where DE rules were kind of favoured over the MLG rules.
Black Ops 1 is the one where it really made a difference in, because Black Ops 1 rules in America were basically for FAMAS. It was for FAMAS. The FAMAS, the organ, something like that. I think it was a G11 was banned. And I actually went back and watched a montage. I think it was Kataga and Agony's montage from Black Ops 1. If you are watching, go get a view. That's actually really good.
After the stream, of course.
Now you're watching now. This is going to be boring for the rest of it. So so Black Ops, it did change the rules. But yeah, I mean, I kind of get where you're coming from, Tommy, but at the same time, it's a little bit of a tricky area.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupt you there.
I'm not going to go there because I know like there's complications. Obviously, the scene has evolved and it was different at some points than it is now. But in terms of the EU scene, this has probably been like the longest question ever. I think. I feel as if branding is a big part of it, as you talked about, and then we went on a rant about internet. I feel like players and teams need to brand themselves better to get more people into the community because I think some of the recent lands, we haven't had the greatest turnout, I would say, but I feel over time with the likes of Gfinity, with what they're doing, I feel they're bringing in the infrastructure, and I just feel like a couple more organizations need to come into the scene, like Pro Asylum, like AM2 Pro, to give more structure to basically have means for players to compete at LAN, because that's basically where everything's determined.
One of these events.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Just stop being there. I just felt like putting that in.
Okay.
I might be playing at one of them.
Oh, this weekend?
Can I carry you?
Not this weekend, obviously. Why would we be playing ESWC?
Vitality.
Yeah. No.
You've heard it here first, guys. Vitality prize.
He's just like, yeah.
At no point have any of those players lost their senses to kind of get me in.
Well, they got desperate, and it was the last resort.
There's desperate, and then there's just insane. But no, I might play at a few of these events, and that's the great thing, right? Is that there are so many events that I get the chance to play them, because I don't think I'm casting all events this year in the UK. Even though I love casting events, I love attending all these events, and it will be the first time in several years that I've got to go to a LAN and A, be a player again, and B, not working it. So that'll be quite interesting for me.
Awesome. Right, shall we move on to the second question?
Yeah.
We've kind of dragged on a bit on that one. You're not going to like this. I already know, Bryce, you're not going to like this. We talked about it pre-show, but I feel like I want to ask you it because your answer was quite good when we talked pre-show. The question is coming in from Sam McGee, probably related to McGee himself. He actually asked, I don't know what his at is. It's ridiculous. Again, you need to change it for first off. Basically saying, I think he's meant to say, do you think Optic Gaming will still be good with Enable?
Yes. It's a really it's a terrible question. I think I said that in the pre-show. It's an awful question. Do I think a good team with a good player will still be good? Of course. I mean, what kind of question is that? I appreciate what they're trying to say. They're
trying to do the comparison between obviously Enable and Karma.
You're not asking if it's going to be a good team. You're asking if Enable's a good substitute for Karma. And the truth is that you don't know. Nobody knows yet. It's going to be one of those ones where Karma's fantastic, and so's Enable. They're both elite level players. They're both fantastic players, and they're playing with three gods. How will they be good? Of course they'll be good. How good will they be? That's the real question. And it comes back to, are Optic got the chemistry right? Will they have enough practice? Will the strats be down to take down? They'll beat most of the teams, but it's when they get to play the teams that can potentially beat them. That's when the deciding factor will be, and that's what I think you're trying to ask. But asking that question is basically, I might as well just flip a coin for it, because until they play, you can't tell whether Enable will be a god or with that team, or whether or not it just won't click, or whether or not Denial will counterplay them, or TR will have their number, or whether they'll just get beaten in points. Maybe a wrong call or a wrong strat or a push goes the wrong way.
It's a chemistry factor.
Gunfight. Yeah, exactly. Anything could happen with an unknown quantity. This is not things like Counter-Strike where the same team will stay together for 16 years. It's
Rage, do you have an input? I'm pretty sure.
I mean, he's a good player. I feel as if there's always going to be chemistry issues, but when you're that good and you're constantly playing against some of the best teams in the world, in the Pro League at the MLG, I feel as if you're always going to fit in pretty much every team unless you're hated by the team. So I feel as if they got to do well, probably not as well as they would do with Karma because they're used to playing with him. But I know the other three players on that team, I mean, there's 4 members of the team. It isn't just one person. And those 3, they could pretty much, I believe people tweeted out when the team actually first came out, it was like, Nadeshot doesn't need to play. And like the fact that Karma, the 2-time world champion, is also
which is actually just farcical, by the way. It's ridiculous.
It's just insane. Like the team's too good.
No, I meant the fact that people thought that Nadeshot didn't have to play.
Obviously, I think there's a certain extent of him
literally
playing.
sit here and talk about Nadeshot for a good half an hour and probably annoy a few people. Other people make them realise about Nadeshot and what he actually meant for that team. And we go back to Ghost, we go back to Black Ops 2, we actually go back further than that, Modern Warfare 3, where I first met him.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk a lot about him. But people have got this. I think Hex summed this up best for me. Absolutely summed it up best for me. He goes, he will never. No one will ever gauge the true ability of Nate Shot. He goes because the fans will think he's the greatest thing since Jesus, and his peers will always think that he's overblown because his fans think he's too good. So everyone's going to judge him a little bit wrongly. And Hex, and that's a quote from Hex. Hex has said that. He goes, "It's difficult to judge a man who's the most beloved character in the Call of Duty scene. How do you judge him? If you say, oh, he's awful, then you've got 80,000 people all suddenly battering your Twitter down and going, you're wrong." But if you're right, then you're right. If you're not, I'm not saying. I think Nade was actually fantastic. I think whatever happened in that Optic team for their underperforming at Champs is something that I've heard a little bit about from one or two of the players, but we'll never get the full picture because you can never guess all of their strats they've kept off. You never guess all the calls that were made. You weren't there playing that game from their perspective.
You weren't
at that
in the
time.
listening.
Yeah, so you'll never know what has truly happened behind the scenes. And Nade, I knew Nade was going to retire. It was so written on the wall. It was unbelievable. If you'd won, that was the question. I was like, well, he might go out of the top, and that would cement him as a legacy then.
I feel like that's what kept him going. His wins at Orlando.
He kept going for Champs. I genuinely believe he kept going for Champs. He wanted to quit maybe 6 months ago, I think. He was looking at retirement. He's tweeted it more than once in the last year or so.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where he went, you know what, I'll go to Champs. He got the team for Champs.
Yeah.
He would have won Champs, idealistically.
And then retired.
I felt like he would have still retired. I felt like we would have lost him.
I feel the same.
I feel like there's so much on his shoulders because obviously, as you say, it's love-hate. He's getting hated by his peers because the fans overrate him, as they like to say, I feel. And then on the same side, you've got the fans that obviously always going to be behind him. And the fact I feel that the team was perceived to be so good that they had to win. There was no other option. And I feel like Nade knew that.
He became a scapegoat. Nade became a scapegoat. For a team that didn't work, and you got to say no. And he was right in his retirement video. I'm sure lots of you watched it. He was right when he said, "He goes, I'm fed up of being the scapegoat." He goes, "I'm fed up of having looked at the scoreboard and look like underperform. Oh, you're the one." You know what? That's a pressure he found himself in because he's playing with 3 players. Scumpy has always been a god. Crimsix, for me, still easily considered one of the best players in the world. Formal, is a Halo and COD champion within the same month.
That says it.
Look at those resumes. How do you do that as a normal player? And Nade Shot's guy, and Nade Shot, if he doesn't drop 30-40 kills a game, I think that's what bothered him, and he said that's what bothered him, and you can quite easily believe it. And he's probably going, you know what? I don't need to compete like this anymore. This isn't everything. He's got a streaming. He's a personality. He's doing bloody well for himself. So you know what? It's one of those things where he's probably right. I said he was right in everything he said in his retirement video. It was a very honest video for him saying, you know what? I don't need to do this. If Optic win, I win. That's plain and simple.
Tommy, what's your opinions on this before we go on to the next question?
I agree. That's it. I want to keep it short because I know we're kind of going on a bit. I think that he made the right decision. I feel like he probably would have retired at some point. I feel the only thing that kept him going was the fact that he was winning. I feel like he would have retired earlier if the team didn't work out because it was perceived to be the best team. I feel Crimsix had a big part to play. I don't know why. I just get the impression that Crimsix and him kind of butted heads a bit. I feel like they're both kind of in-game leaders, and Crim's obviously driven to win as well. So I think he may have had an influence. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Just where I'm with Crim. How many players do you know that can win as much as he does and still take even dropping a map as badly as he does? That is pure hunger and passion. That guy has got a level of drive that I don't think I've ever seen. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, you've taken words out of my mouth. So let's just move on to the next question. I think you've got it ready, Rage.
Yeah, I managed to load it up. My computer finally loaded up. It's very, very slow, but it's actually coming from someone who watches the show quite a bit. He's very active on Twitter. He's very supportive of the show. That's Swag_LP. Paddy.
I have a love-hate relationship with this person.
Go on, you talk about that first, and then we'll get to his question.
I can never tell whether or not they like me or not, because I used to say a lot of negative things about Lightning Pandas back in the day. Maybe back Benny Central.
Oh, dear.
And I don't think they appreciated that. They were awful.
I said something in one of my latest videos, and he wasn't too happy about that, about Lightning Pandas. But moving on to his question, there's another sporting event on same time as ESWC. It's the Mayweather versus Pacquiao. It's not as big as ESWC, obviously, but any of you know anything about that? What's your predictions going into that? That's what he's asking.
I predict this fight should have happened 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What a joke that is.
That's an
Also,
anti-joke,
please don't say yeah, because you were like 10 5 years.
No,
Yes,
I would agree. I would
knew
agree.
about
3 years
boxing
ago.
5 years ago.
3 years ago, I'd probably say that's when it should have happened. 5 years ago, again, I probably wasn't even born 5 years ago. So
Exactly.
you're right about that.
I feel like you should just be quiet in this section. And suddenly I have improved the show.
Oh dear.
Go for it. Go. I'm quite happy to sit out for the question.
I don't know if I'm going to watch this fight. Technically, I'm working. I want to watch the fight. This is a fight that should have happened a long time ago, and both of them didn't want to do it because, let's face it, their legacies were there. The problem being is that neither of them wanted to fight because neither of them wanted to ruin a legacy. Mayweather didn't want to go against the guy who, is as furious as Pacquiao, and Pacquiao, I think, wanted the fight, but wouldn't accede to Mayweather's terms. But he was also kind of aware that his luster wouldn't be as shiny now. And they've come together, at this point for something like a £500 million payoff, which is actually ridiculous. So I'm not as excited for this fight as they could be. Because they're both not where they should be. This should have happened after both of them beat Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
And everyone knows it should have happened then. Everyone called for it to happen then, and there was all kinds of accusations about steroids and the amount of blood that Mayweather wanted to take from Pacquiao to test his blood before the event, and all kinds of complete rubbish, bullshit. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Mayweather's a counter-puncher. It's always been a counter-puncher who's technically a fantastic boxer, and Mayweather's always been a hurricane. So can Mayweather outbox Pacquiao's fast and furious style? Is Pacquiao anywhere near as good as he was 5 years ago? Now he's had a few defeats. Well, he's definitely had a defeat. I don't know about a few defeats.
He's had two, I think.
Yeah, a few defeats. Whereas, Mayweather's still 42-0, and you got to remember, like, Mayweather's also has the thing where, if you take Ricky Hatton as the opposite of the scale, where he goes from fighting fit to massively overweight, disgusting blob, and then back to fighting fit. Mayweather's the opposite end of that scale, where he stays in peak physical fitness the entire time. But I'll leave you to make your predictions, because for me, it's one of those fights. Oh yeah, I'd love to see, and I'm going to watch it. I will go and watch the fight. And I'm interested to know who wins, but nowhere near. It's still not the fight. It's still not Mayweather versus Pacquiao. It's Mayweather and Pacquiao having it on when they should have done.
It should have happened back when Rage was still in his nappies.
Yeah, for about 5 years.
What was a year ago?
Yeah. Yes.
Tell me, what's your opinions on?
I don't actually follow boxing too much, but I know the two names. I'm just gonna go with Mayweather. I honestly don't really know too much. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really follow boxing too much. It's one of the sports I don't really indulge into, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and it's anticipated to be, one of the biggest spectacles, in a while. So I'm excited to see what happens, but I don't really follow boxing.
The smart money's on Mayweather. So I'll probably say Mayweather, but I want Pacquiao to win because I just kind of like him as a person, if that's weird. Like, I feel as if he's kind of like the underdog going into the fight, and obviously everyone likes an underdog story. So I want Pacquiao to win. Phil Mayweather's probably going to win. I'd probably say he's the underdog. I mean, Mayweather's going into it with like whatever, I think it's like 47, alone. So that's if you're going into a fight undefeated 47-0, you're going to be going into it the favourites, no matter who it is.
But if you take historically, like when that Pacquiao Mayweather fight was supposed to happen, it wasn't, and that's the thing, right? This is what irritates me most about this fight, right? Is that they're basically this entire fight is happening to prey on what happened before.
Yeah,
they're kind of trying to go, well, yeah, this is the fight. The fight. It's not the fight. This is 5 years past the fight, and you guys want to one last payout.
Living in the past in a way.
Yeah, but they're preying on people's memories of how good it was. So, I don't know. Mayweather may be the favourite, but for me, Pacquiao back in the day would have taken him. So it's,
100%.
Okay, we're gonna move on swiftly to the next question. Coming in from our very own MWG Rostermania. Hopefully, Goalie's got it up on the screen. It's a question that I really wanted to ask because I'm sure Rage is gonna enjoy it, and it's basically who is the better caster, Bryce or Rage? Let's go to Bryce first.
What do you want me to make a case for?
Right, guys,
I would like you to make a case for why you are a better caster than Rage. I'm sure this will be very long.
All right. Well, for a start, he's not a caster. He's just not.
Can you give us a reason why?
Well, he's not clever enough.
Oh,
He's basically an awful person who's trying to be. He looks like someone's seen a human from a distance and tried to draw them. His knowledge is okay, I suppose. Could be worse, but not much. Basically, you know, if most of the casting talent in the UK died, he might have a chance of being, you know, someone on stream.
Oh no.
And Rage, what is your belief?
I didn't even say anything about myself there. I just ripped on him.
That'll do.
Bryce is a great person.
No, that's your first line.
I'm going to keep it
You're going to be arguing for yourself.
I'm going to keep it
diplomatic. Go to the opposition. You know, oh yeah, they're pretty good.
I don't even need to argue my case.
No, there's a reason why Bryce is where he is at the minute, and that's because, you know, he's put in the effort over the years and he's quite good at what he does. So yeah, Bryce. However, you know, I'm new. So yeah. I'm obviously going to be significantly
This question
worse.
was all fun and games. Like, it was.
Yeah, Landon knows. Landon's the right guy. However, I do hate you now.
I am coming for you.
So that's the thing. Why was that asked? Why was that asked?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm asking what the community want to know. Like, don't be honest with you.
It's the first time I've heard you actually referred to as a caster, so that was kind of good.
To be fair, though, I mean, like,
oh dear.
To be fair, though, like, Bryce, you need to sort out the hair. But on that note, I'm going to quickly end this.
Basically, I have like talent and knowledge to back to kind of drag away.
Guys, thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you check down below for all the important codes. 5% off your Scuff Gaming controller with the code STiKS, and then 10% off all your G Fuel with the code Kingdom. So make sure you use that. Bryce, any last words? Tommy, any last words? Dear.
Your composure's just gone from like up here to like down here.
Bryce, final minute of shout outs. Any special shout outs, any specific things you want to say before the show ends?
Shout out to Extreme Gaming, at Extreme Gaming on Twitter. It's at extreme_gaming, because they've kind of hosted me for this thing, so I'm here in their studio. So please go give them a follow, because if it wasn't for how awesome they were, A, I wouldn't be in esports, and B, I wouldn't be able to do it on the show. And the second thing is, do you think Rage is the product of a human and a giraffe?
And speaking of that, I think he is. I think he's got a very long neck. And you know,
he's like a badly drawn human. I'm telling you this.
Thanks as always, guys, for watching. We really do appreciate it. Obviously, ESWC happening this weekend. Do check it out. Bryce will obviously be there casting. You'll have him on your screens. I think you're with Ton, if I'm not mistaken. It's just you two.
Yes.
Plus the. Do you know what's going on? Because from my understanding, there's an Alpha and a Bravo stream for the English side of things.
I don't know all the details. There's been a lot of kind of back and forth with what's going on. I'll kind of sort it out when I get out there.
Okay, awesome. But thank you as always, guys, for watching. My links are all down below if you want to check it out, and Rage will end the show.
I will apparently end the show. There's no too annoying the show, but yeah, as I already mentioned, check out the codes down below of this Twitch stream. This will also be in the description of the YouTube video later. And yeah, check them all out. Get yourself a Scuff, get yourself some G Fuel, and yeah, have yourself a nice week, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye.